You have been training people how to treat you your entire life, and you didn't even know you were the instructor. Every time you tolerated subtle disrespect, you set the standard. Every time you laughed off an insult that cut deeper than you admitted, you lowered the bar. Every time you over-explained yourself to someone who never intended to understand you, you signed a silent contract. This is how I allow myself to be handled. And people accepted it. Not because they are evil, not because the world is cruel, but because human beings instinctively test boundaries. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. In The Prince, he observed rulers, not friends, power, not comfort, strategy, not emotion. And he reached a conclusion most men still refuse to face. People treat you according to the limits you enforce. Tonight, you learn the one action that shifts the entire dynamic. Do this once, just once, and watch how the world recalibrates around you. Withdraw your tolerance for disrespect, not loudly, not emotionally, not dramatically, silently, decisively, permanently. Most men think respect is earned through charisma, kindness, humor, or generosity. They think if they give enough value, they will be valued. If they are good enough, they will be treated well. But Machiavelli never relied on goodness. He relied on positioning. And the first law of positioning is this: if there is no cost for crossing you, you will be crossed again. This is not about aggression. It is not about yelling or threatening. It is not about becoming hostile. It is about consequences. The moment someone disrespects you and nothing happens, your value decreases in their mind. The moment someone disrespects you and access to you changes, your value increases. Do you understand the difference? Weak men negotiate their dignity. Strong men adjust their presence. You do not argue. You do not explain. You do not beg for better treatment. You remove your availability. And that single act triggers something primal in the human psyche. Because respect is not emotional, it is structural. Look at history. Leaders who tolerated betrayal were overthrown. Leaders who allowed open mockery were weakened. Leaders who tried to please everyone were eventually despised. But leaders who responded to disrespect with strategic coldness were feared. Not hated, feared. And fear, as Machiavelli observed, is a more reliable foundation than love when control is required. Now, understand this clearly. You are not trying to become feared in your relationships. You are trying to become respected. But respect and fear share one common root: consequence. When someone jokes at your expense and you nervously laugh, you teach them you are safe to target. When someone speaks over you and you allow it repeatedly, you teach them your voice is optional. When someone cancels plans with you last minute and you immediately reschedule without hesitation, you teach them your time is disposable. And once you teach that lesson, it spreads. Human beings are observers. They study reactions. They measure responses. They calculate risk. If disrespect carries no risk, it will continue. The shift begins the moment you remove access. You do not send a paragraph explaining your feelings. You do not create a dramatic speech. You simply adjust your behavior. You become less available, less reactive, less accessible. And something fascinating happens inside the other person's mind. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is one of the most powerful psychological triggers in existence. When someone is used to consistent access to you, and suddenly that access changes, their brain goes into analysis mode. What happened? Did I say something wrong? Why is he different? And here is the key: you say nothing. Silence forces introspection. When you argue, they defend. When you explain, they justify. When you withdraw, they reflect. This is dark psychology at its cleanest form. No manipulation, no games. Just structural change. Because the truth is this: People do not respect what is constantly available. They respect what can walk away. This is why Machiavelli advised rulers to control perception. Power is not only about force. It is about positioning yourself above pettiness. The moment you stop participating in small disrespect, you rise above it. And rising above something makes others look up. But most men fail here. They crave resolution. They crave clarity. They crave understanding. They want the other person to admit fault, to apologize, to recognize the mistake. That craving is weakness, because it means you still need something from them. The powerful man needs nothing. He does not need closure. He does not need validation. He does not need apologies. He adjusts and moves forward. And that is the action that changes everything. Imagine this scenario. Someone in your circle makes a subtle jab at your ambition. A joke disguised as humor. Old version of you is less than #0. 2 is greater than. You respond. You defend your goals. You laugh awkwardly. You try to show confidence. New version of you? You look at them calmly. No reaction. No forced smile. Then your energy shifts. You speak less around them. You engage less. You give them less of your attention. Not aggressively, strategically. Within weeks, the dynamic changes, because humans instinctively fear losing social position. When they sense they have lost access to you, they either correct themselves or drift away. Both outcomes are victories. Do this once, withdraw tolerance, and observe. In business, this is lethal. When negotiating, the person who cannot walk away loses. The person who can stand up, close the folder, and say, "I'll consider it," wins. Not because he is louder, but because he signals optionality. Optionality equals power. When people sense you have options, they treat you carefully. When people sense you need them, they treat you casually. That is the cold mathematics of social dynamics. You do not become powerful by raising your voice. You become powerful by raising your standards. And standards are invisible until they are enforced. Machiavelli would never beg for loyalty. He would create conditions where betrayal was costly. You must do the same in modern life. Your presence is a privilege. Your time is finite. Your attention is expensive. Once someone proves they cannot handle access to you correctly, you do not fight. You downgrade their access. That single action recalibrates their perception, because humans instinctively chase what withdraws. The less predictable you become in the face of disrespect, the more stable you appear. The less emotional you become, the more dominant you appear. This is not about ego. This is about structure. You are restructuring your personal kingdom. Inside that kingdom, disrespect is taxed heavily, and once that tax is imposed, behavior changes. But here is the deeper layer. This action is not for them. It is for you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you weaken your internal authority. Every time you enforce a boundary silently, you strengthen it. The first shift happens within. The external shift follows automatically. Because when you believe your time is valuable, your behavior reflects it. When you believe your presence is rare, your posture changes. When you believe your standards are non-negotiable, your tone shifts. And people feel it before you say a word. This is the first transformation. You are no longer reacting to how people treat you. You are conditioning how they treat you. And that conditioning begins with one decision. The next time someone crosses the line, you will not argue. You will adjust access. Do it once, and watch how people begin to treat you differently. Now you understand the action. Withdraw tolerance. Adjust access. Say nothing. But if you truly want to operate at a higher level, you must understand why this works. Because once you understand the mechanics, you stop doubting the strategy. Machiavelli never relied on emotion. He relied on human nature. And human nature has not changed. The brain is wired to value what is scarce and disregard what is abundant. When you are constantly available, constantly responsive, constantly forgiving, you become predictable. And predictability kills perceived value. But the moment your behavior shifts without explanation, something primal activates: uncertainty. Uncertainty is more powerful than confrontation. When you confront someone, they defend themselves. When you explain yourself, they counter-argue. When you withdraw silently, they are left alone with their thoughts. And the human mind cannot tolerate unresolved ambiguity. Neuroscience shows that social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. The brain processes exclusion as a threat, not a minor inconvenience, a threat. When someone senses your energy shift, when your attention drops, when your enthusiasm fades, when your responses become shorter, their nervous system detects change. They feel the distance before they understand it. And here is the key difference between weak withdrawal and powerful withdrawal. Weak withdrawal is emotional, powerful withdrawal is calm. Weak withdrawal is dramatic, powerful withdrawal is controlled. Weak withdrawal seeks attention, powerful withdrawal removes it. If you make a show of leaving, you lose leverage. If you quietly reposition yourself, you gain it. This is where most men fail. They attempt boundaries through anger. They announce their dissatisfaction. They say, "I don't like how you treated me." But the moment you say that, you reveal emotional investment. And emotional investment signals dependency. Dependency reduces leverage. The Machiavellian approach is cleaner: no speeches, no emotional tone shifts, no threats, just subtle recalibration. You speak less, you engage less, you invest less. And suddenly, the power dynamic shifts, because attention is currency, and you have just devalued theirs. Human beings crave validation, they crave response, they crave acknowledgement. When you remove acknowledgement, you create tension. That tension forces the other person to reassess their behavior. They will test you. They will make another joke. They will poke again. They will attempt to restore the old dynamic. This is the fart moment of truth. If you return to your old behavior, you reinforce the previous hierarchy. If you remain consistent, the hierarchy flips. Consistency is dominance. Anyone can withdraw once. Few can sustain it. Machiavelli emphasized virtue, the internal discipline that allows a man to act with calculation instead of impulse. This is where that discipline is forged. Your ego will want to correct them. Your pride will want to respond. Your emotions will want resolution. But resolution is not power. Control is power. And control begins with self-control. In relationships, the one who reacts first loses position. If someone disrespects you and you immediately defend yourself, you communicate vulnerability. If someone disrespects you and you calmly disengage, you communicate standards. Standards create gravity, and gravity pulls respect toward you. Now, let's break down what happens inside the other person's mind. First, confusion. Why is he different? Second, analysis. Did I say something wrong? Third, anxiety. Is he pulling away? Fourth, recalibration. Maybe I went too far. This entire psychological spiral happens without you saying a word. That is strategic influence. You are not forcing behavior. You are allowing natural human insecurity to do the work for you. The person who once felt comfortable crossing your boundaries now feels instability. And instability makes people cautious. Caution turns into respect. But this only works if your withdrawal is genuine. If you secretly hope they notice, you will leak desperation. If you check your phone waiting for their reaction, you are still dependent. The transformation must be internal first. You must truly accept that losing access to them is acceptable, because the man who can lose people without losing himself is untouchable. Most men tolerate disrespect because they fear loss. They fear losing social connection. They fear being alone. They fear conflict. That fear leaks into their posture, their tone, their energy, and others sense it. Powerful men are not fearless. They are indifferent to small losses. They understand that preserving self-respect is more valuable than preserving weak connections. Now let's take this into business. Imagine negotiating a contract. The other side lowballs you. Weak move. You argue emotionally. Powerful move. You close your notebook and say, "I understand. I'll explore other options." Silence. You stand up and you walk away calmly. That single action communicates more strength than any speech because it shows you are not dependent on the deal. Optionality equals leverage. In social settings, this works the same way. When someone interrupts you repeatedly, you do not compete for airtime. You stop contributing to that circle. You redirect your energy elsewhere. Within days, they notice. Because your presence carried weight, even if you did not realize it. Absence reveals value. This is why Machiavelli warned leaders not to be overly generous with their accessibility. Familiarity breeds contempt. Scarcity breeds respect. If you are always around, always talking, always explaining, you become background noise. But if your engagement is selective, your words gain weight, and weight commands attention. This is not about becoming antisocial. This is about becoming intentional. You are not withdrawing from everyone. You are withdrawing from those who treat you casually. Selective engagement elevates status. Indiscriminate engagement lowers it. The psychological trigger here is called intermittent reinforcement. When people do not know exactly when they will receive your full attention, they value it more when they get it. Predictability reduces attraction. Controlled unpredictability increases it. That is social leverage. But there is a deeper transformation happening within you. The moment you enforce silent consequences, your self-image changes. You begin to see yourself as someone who cannot be casually disrespected. And identity shapes behavior. When your identity shifts, your posture shifts. When your posture shifts, your tone shifts. When your tone shifts, the world responds differently. This is not magic. This is feedback loops. You enforce a boundary. You feel stronger. You act stronger. Others perceive strength. They adjust behavior. And the loop reinforces itself. This is why you must do it once. Just once. Because once you feel the shift, you will never go back. You will see how quickly dynamics change when you stop tolerating what drains you. But understand this clearly. This is not about punishing others. It is about protecting yourself. You are not trying to hurt them. You are trying to preserve your internal authority. The moment you tolerate behavior that violates your standards, you weaken that authority. The moment you enforce it silently, you fortify it. And the world treats you according to the strength of that internal authority. Now we go deeper. Because if this is just a tactic, it will fade. If this is just something you try, it will collapse under pressure. But if this becomes who you are, your posture, your energy, your default response, then the shift is permanent. And permanence is power. Machiavelli did not teach temporary moves. In The Prince, he studied rulers who survived decades, not moments. The men who lasted were not those who reacted emotionally. They were the ones who structured themselves in a way that made disrespect irrational. That is your final evolution. You are no longer enforcing boundaries occasionally. You are becoming a man whose boundaries are felt before they are tested. There is a difference. The average man tries to command respect after being disrespected. The powerful man commands it from the beginning. How? Through calibrated presence. You walk slower, you speak less, you hold eye contact slightly longer than comfortable, you do not rush to fill silence, you do not overlaugh at jokes, you do not overshare. Personal details. These micro-signals communicate something primal. I am not here to be approved. Most men unconsciously broadcast neediness. They lean in too quickly, they smile too much, they respond too fast, they agree too easily. And each of these behaviors signals the same thing: please accept me. You will not broadcast that anymore. You will broadcast self-sufficiency. Because people treat self-sufficient men differently. When someone senses you are internally stable, they become cautious. When someone senses you are internally dependent, they become careless. This is not cruelty. This is human instinct. Dominance hierarchies exist in every social structure: workplaces, friend groups, relationships, business negotiations. The man who controls his reactions controls his position. You must internalize one brutal truth. If people treat you casually, it is because you have made it safe to do so. That ends now. From this day forward, you will operate under 3 silent laws. The first law: do not reward what you dislike. If someone disrespects you and you laugh, you reward it. If someone cancels repeatedly and you instantly accommodate, you reward it. If someone speaks over you and you continue engaging as normal, you reward it. Instead, you reduce engagement, you lower warmth, you remove access, not dramatically, gradually, and permanently. The second law: do not explain your standards. Weak men announce their boundaries. Strong men enforce them. If someone crosses a line, you do not deliver a lecture, you shift your behavior. And that shift is the message. Because when you explain too much, you reveal emotional investment. When you adjust silently, you reveal control. The third law: be willing to lose anyone who refuses to adjust. This is the hardest one, because the fear of loss is what kept you tolerating disrespect in the first place. But understand this: if enforcing your standards causes someone to leave, they were only comfortable with a weaker version of you. That version is dead. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to be respected by the right ones, and respect filters people automatically. Now, let's talk about energy. Energy precedes language. Before you speak, people scan your posture, your breathing, your eye movement, your micro-reactions. If you flinch emotionally, they see it. If you stay neutral, they feel it. This is why internal discipline matters more than external tactics. You cannot fake indifference. You must cultivate it. The Stoics called it inner sovereignty. Machiavelli called it virtue mastery over oneself. The man who cannot be emotionally hijacked becomes a different category of man. You insult him, nothing moves. You challenge him, he evaluates calmly. You test him, he remains steady. And that steadiness changes how people interact with him. Because instability invites dominance. Stability commands deference. When someone realizes they cannot provoke you, they stop trying. When someone realizes they cannot manipulate your emotions, they stop attempting control. When someone realizes you can walk away without emotional collapse, they treat you carefully. This is the permanent shift. You are no longer reacting to gain respect. You are structured in a way that makes disrespect expensive. And here is what will happen. Some people will try harder to impress you. Some will soften their tone. Some will become more polite. Some will drift away entirely. All of these outcomes serve you, because you are no longer optimizing for comfort. You are optimizing for positioning. In relationships, this means you do not chase, You do not double text. You do not over-explain your intentions. You match energy or you reduce it. Calmly. In business, this means you do not accept rushed deals. You do not negotiate from desperation. You signal optionality. In social settings, this means you do not compete for attention. You speak when necessary. You observe more than you react. You allow silence to stretch. Silence is uncomfortable for insecure people, comfortable for powerful ones. And the man who is comfortable in silence becomes the gravitational center of the room. Now, understand this clearly. This transformation is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming selective. Warmth is powerful when it is controlled. Kindness is powerful when it is earned. Attention is powerful when it is scarce. You are not shutting down emotionally. You are directing your emotional investment with precision. The difference between a king and a beggar is not money. It is self-perception. The beggar seeks approval. The king assumes worth. From this day forward, you assume worth. You assume your time matters. You assume your presence is valuable. You assume your standards are reasonable. And when you assume that internally, you stop tolerating what contradicts it externally. This is how identity reshapes treatment. You do this once, enforce silent consequence, and you feel the shift. You do it consistently, and you become untouchable. Not untouchable in arrogance, untouchable in emotional stability, untouchable in self-respect, untouchable in internal authority. And when people sense that internal authority, they treat you differently, because humans instinctively respect what is grounded. You have spent years bleeding power without noticing, responding too quickly, explaining too much, laughing too easily, forgiving too casually. That version ends here. The new version is quieter, calmer, less available, more deliberate. He does not need to say, "Respect me." He behaves in a way that makes disrespect irrational. This is the Machiavellian shift. Not manipulation, not cruelty. Structure, self-command, strategic positioning. From now on, when someone crosses the line, you do not react. You recalibrate. When someone tests you, you do not argue. You adjust access. When someone underestimates you, you do not defend. You elevate your distance. And once you do this, truly do it, watch carefully. Watch how tones soften. Watch how invitations become more respectful. Watch how interruptions decrease. Watch how people hesitate before crossing you again. Because once they sense that access to you is conditional, they begin to treat it as a privilege. That is the difference. And it begins with a single act. Withdraw tolerance, enforce silence, adjust access, do it once, and watch how people treat you differently. Your transformation is complete. Now carry it with precision.